Hello, hola. My name is Christopher Hutchins, not Christian. I've been merged with one of the other Chris's in our company. I go by Hutch. We have 4 Chris's in our business, so please don't call me Chris. Hutch. Good. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about Lake, but also a little bit about shoes. And hopefully you guys can have a little more understanding about not just cycling shoes, but also the shoes that you wear every day. So a little history here. From the beginning of, let's say, Lake's birth, the widespread monetization of everyday life was still in its early stage. The full Nike effect had not been realized yet. The Nike effect is, okay, I'm in the shoe business now. I'm going to get into the saddle business and the helmet business and whatever, the clothing business, where you buy your way into a category. There was a time when people were still quite specialized in what their craft was. Access to information was considered a luxury and not readily available commodity. Today, we can go on our phones and find out everything. Back then, if you wanted to know something, you had to read about it, or you had to wait until it was on television, or you had to go and participate in something, go see an event live. Marketing efforts were limited in their scope and impact, and limited to brands with massive financial budgets. So you had like Coca-Cola, massive budget. They could sponsor everything. They had advertisements in every magazine. It wasn't easy for a small brand like Lake or CD or Pinarello at that time to be known across the planet like they are today. Cycling as a sport saw a surge and popularity primarily in Western countries with higher levels of disposable income, allowing for the purchase of luxury cycling accessories like cycling-specific shoes. Up until that time, all cycling shoes were manufactured in mass production in Europe. So a problem started to emerge. Early cycling shoes were made with leather soles, which lacked stiffness and durability for long-lasting performance. So there was an innovation in 1979. An Italian cycling shoemaker comes to fame for being known as the first brand to use injection nylon soles on cycling shoes. This revolutionized cycling shoes, offering increased stiffness for increased long-lasting performance. However, the shoes often lacked comfort. Some of you may know who this famous Italian brand is.
We don't know, but they start with an S and they end with an I.
Correct.
Yeah. They're still making the cycle the same way.
So this was the what we call the Ferrari approach. More performance, more performance, more performance, but the pilot, the rider, their comfort is not necessarily, they need to conform to fit. So this is where Lake starts. The original founder of Lake is the first North American distributor of this famous Italian brand. And so that was a huge deal for North American cycling. So as cycling grew in popularity in the US, the demographics of riders became more diverse, leading to a greater need for shoes that could accommodate different body types and comfort levels. Most of you know US has a mix of different people from the Americas, Europe, Asia, Africa, not just Europeans. The founder of Lake addressed this point to the Italian brand that he was distributing in North America. The Italian brand was not very receptive to this request. And the response to Lake's founder left him with very little choice but to solve the comfort issue on his own. So the solution for comfort. Recognizing the need for comfort, Lake cycling shoes were designed with a simple yet impactful improvement. Include a foam insole. Everyone's shoe has an insole now, everyone. But at cycling shoes, at this time, they didn't have them. Because leather-soled shoes, you don't need an insole. After time, the leather takes the shape of your foot. But nylon does not change shape. It flexes a little bit, but it will not take the shape of your foot. So the simple solution, put an insole in. That's all they were asking for. And the Italian response, do it yourself. So by the 1980s, shoe manufacturing in the US had already been significantly reduced and offshored to Asia. This trend had already been in motion by 1971 when Nike began mass production shoes primarily in Taiwan. Along with Japan and Taiwan, South Korea in 1980 was one of the emerging footwear powerhouses where the ability to start a factory was still within the reach of a small business owner. Lake started the first cycling shoe factory outside of Europe in Busan, South Korea in 1982. Fast forward a few years, road cycling falls out of favor in the mid-'80s, and mountain biking explodes as a counterculture to the restrictive nature of organized and monetized competitive cycling, gaining over 65% of the bicycling market. During that time, Lake found an opportunity and introduced to the world the first mountain bike shoe in 1983. Schwinn moved production to Taiwan in the early 1980s as a solution to striking workers at their US assembly plant. The Taiwanese took over and transformed the industry into a business of the highest bidder. A lot of you may be familiar with working with a lot of brands where the bikes are being made in Taiwan. This all started around this time in 1980, and we're still in the thick of it today, and we'll see how much that's going to change in the future. Shortly after that, Nike buys their way into the cycling business with the famous American Lance Armstrong. Other bike brands follow Nike's lead and start to buy their way into the cycling shoe business. At this point, being a marketing company in the bike industry becomes a priority over being a product company for most brands. Lake struggles for years in an industry that rewards newness for the sake of being new and prioritize pay to play for market position, and even more bike brands following the Nike strategy to buy their way into categories with the help of Taiwanese manufacturing. So there's a show called the Taichung Bike Week or the Taipei Show. If you have the money, you go in, you can put your logo on pretty much any product that's available in the bike category. Overnight, you're in the bike business. Every year, Lake would update a few models in its collection, and every 4 to 6 years, the collection is completely renewed. The change and updates to the collection were based on feedback and the evolution of the bike world. As consumers expect change with product and how they evolve with the market, the product is dependent on the evolution and adaptation of marketing efforts, especially sales strategies and consumer mentality. Traditional sales channels such as distribution networks begin to decline and lose their share to online sales channels. So we're seeing very clearly now how onliners have completely dominated the marketplace, how it's changed the independent bike dealer, changed the bike shop landscape. So coming around 2010, Lake changes ownership and is now a European-owned brand. So two Dutch guys, one of them, Christian Van Asten, who some of you may know, bought the brand from the original owner. Lake updates its marketing strategy to align with the founding principles of comfort and fit. Lake updates its sales channels with a more direct and diversified approach to manage the brand's narrative. Lake products are able to have more direct contact with the marketplace. This direct interaction allows the product to gain meaningful support and input from dealers, fitters, customers, marketing efforts, and sales. This evolution and strategy are the key components that had started to get Lake noticed in the bike world. Up until then, and even still today, Lake is an unknown brand. So now, that was a little bit of Lake's history, and we're going to talk about their story, which is actually your story. Is Lake the right shoe for a bike shop? Most bike shops struggle with soft goods, especially shoes. Today, time and real estate are so heavily monetized that selling shoes is not profitable for bike shops, owners, or staff who have not and do not wish to invest time or effort in learning the details about shoes, nor willing to spend the time to pass detailed information on to their customers. Understanding that bike shops that have business models that are focused on products that do not take up real estate and require minimal effort to sell may not be the right dealer for shoes. Unfortunately, this type of dealer makes up the majority of the marketplace. Bike shops that are trying to compete as hand-off sales channels will continue to struggle against the internet. Lake cycling shoes are a high-quality product that focuses on comfort and performance. They're not subsidized by other categories and are not designed to simply take up space in a shop. Like, we don't make shoes to sell bikes or helmets or saddles. We only make shoes. We're not trying to take up your entire store and be a monopoly. Therefore, Lake cycling shoes may not be the best fit for bike shops that prioritize products that require minimal effort to sell and are subsidized by other categories. However, Lake cycling shoes could be a good fit for a bike shop that are passionate about providing high-quality products and offering expert advice to their customers. Bike fitters, you guys. These shops that are willing to invest time and effort in learning about the products they sell and share that knowledge with their customers will see the benefits of Lake. Actually, you see the benefits of all your products when you put that time and effort and energy to understand what it is and to explain that to your customers. Successful shops understand the key advantage of being a good marketer and using their competitive advantage of face-to-face relationships building, in-depth knowledge of their products, and expertise to make the customer comfortable on the bike. It's a huge advantage over the internet. Internet cannot give that face-to-face. They can't see the nuances and the differentiation between the customer. But bike fitters can, you can. Dealers that align themselves with our values and position realize Lake is not the right shoe in the marketplace of monetizing time and shelf space, but the right shoe for the rider, the right shoe for comfort and fit. Our business is fit, comfort, and performance, in that order. Without fit, there is no comfort. Without comfort, peak performance cannot be achieved or sustained. That is our sustainability. This is our approach, and this is the Lake difference. So back to our story. What is the Lake difference? One of the biggest factors in our success and ability to make some of the best fitting and most comfortable cycling shoes in the world is our unique process. What is that process? Our design, development, production, marketing, sales are highly synchronized. In the past, when brands designed, manufactured, and sold their own products, they were able to manage innovation and craftsmanship in real world. If your designer is in Portland, Oregon, your developer is in Taiwan, your factory is in China, your distribution warehouse is in Salt Lake City, Utah, there's a huge disconnect. Your sales staff are all over the world and they don't communicate with each other except maybe once a year for a presentation. It's a huge disconnect. The closer these key components work together, increase the effectiveness and efficiency of the brand's ability to go to market and be relevant in the marketplace. What is the Lake process here? We are one of the most vertical brands in the cycling world. We design our own product. We develop our own product. We manufacture our own product in our own factories. We market our own product with our own marketing team, and we sell our own product through our own sales channels. We have distribution ourselves in Europe, US, parts of Asia, and in other countries, we partner with distributors who only align with our philosophy. So those first three steps are critical and a key to our success. A designer that knows how to be a developer and a manufacturer of shoes has more insight and ability to make shoes that fit and function at a higher level. We're all designers. I give you all a piece of paper and you can all draw a shoe. We're not all developers though. If I ask you, okay, you've drawn your shoe, now make it. And not only make it, but make 500 of them today. You have to understand that what you design needs to be developed. What you develop needs to be replicated. That's the business. Otherwise, you could be a custom shoemaker and make one shoe, one a week or one a month, but has a limitation in your reach. So designs that can integrate technologies, utilize materials for their strength, and be manufactured to function as intended require an in-depth knowledge of all these steps. So just a little background about me. I've been working with Lake since 1998, 27 years. I've worked and lived in 4 different countries. I've set up 3 factories, and I've worked with thousands of cyclists of all different levels, pro, novice, middle. We're all shoe experts, all of us. We all have differentiation, and we're all equally important if we want to be participating in cycling. We are one of the few brands that truly understands this point and follows this principle. Separating this knowledge and experience causes dysfunction, lack of synchronization, and in the end, the product is unbalanced. Maybe the shoe looks beautiful, ultra lightweight, or very affordable, but does the shoe fit? Are they comfortable to wear? Do they damage your feet? The importance of being a vertical brand means stable supply chain. This is critical to our ability to innovate and adapt to riders' needs as well as market conditions and trends. This allows us to control our destiny. Owning our factories allow us to control our direction and produce products that are often extremely complicated and time-consuming to produce. Lake is able to decide what kind of shoes to make and dictate the terms of what is possible. That is a key competitive advantage that we have, is our shoes are a pain in the ass to make. They're extremely complicated in terms of efficiency. If you don't own your factory, that means your values don't align. A brand's value is to have good product at a good price, on time. A factory's value is to produce as much as possible to make as much money as possible, because they work on a much smaller margin. No way a factory can make the same margin you guys make as a dealer or a distributor. So they're all about quantity, as fast as possible. And if you have to take your time to produce a complicated shoe, it's not profitable, it's not a good business, and an independent factory will not produce it. So that's why you see a lot of other brands, the shoes look extremely the same. They use very less labor-intensive processes, like one-piece uppers that are stamped instead of stitch. Stamping something is much faster than stitching. It costs less labor. So understand that when you see a product that is one piece and all the cool colors and graphics and no stitching, actually no stitching is not a benefit in shoes so much because the only benefit is to the brand and the factory. You save money. So aligning our values. We can align our values with all steps in the process and with the people in the organization. This gives us a higher level of creativity and ability to create innovative solutions. This allows Lake and our products to be aligned with our customers and the bike rider. We make shoes for the rider. We don't make shoes for the dealers or the distributors or a program. It's for the individual. That's our customer. That's your customer. And one day, I think the industry will wake up to that when some of these brands go away, but this is important. So now a little bit more about fit. So Lake Collection is quite robust and often confusing. And for those who are new to the brand, most think of Lake as the wide shoe brand. This is too limited in our scope and only one part of our story. We are the comfort shoe brand, which means our shoes fit. To achieve fit, we utilize 3 key elements. The shoe last, that's the form that the shoes are made on. The pattern design, that's all the pieces, what you see drawn or from the photo, what you aesthetically see. And the materials. So last shape, pattern design, materials. You can change any one of these elements, and this changes the fit. Same last, same pattern, different materials, it's gonna fit differently. Example, a microfiber shoe, same design, same last. Microfiber doesn't stretch as much as leather, but you change to leather, and the shoe's gonna fit much differently, so it'll be a little more forgiving. If you feel, okay, leather is too loose, you change to microfiber, and you have a much tighter, more supportive fit. Same last, different pattern, same materials. Pattern design affects the fit. You can do 1 piece, 8-piece panel, 10-piece, whatever you want, and that will affect the fit. Different last, same pattern, same materials. So if the form is different, a wider toe box, more volume, so we can go narrow, wide, medium, you get a different fit. Adjust these variables allow us to design shoes for all different foot shapes. Narrow feet, wide feet, low volume, high volume, bunions, deformations, sensitivities. We can address a lot of riders' issues of a lot of different backgrounds just by changing these variables. So fit for the purpose of cycling shoe means that the foot does not slide, lift, collapse, or squeeze inside of the shoe. A good fitting shoe will hold the heel to avoid heel slip or the foot lifting while cycling, hold the instep to keep the foot from slipping forward or lifting, support the arch to keep the foot from prematurely flattening. The shoe will not need to be over-tightened to achieve the above 3 mentioned aspects while allowing the forefoot to splay and not be constricted or deformed. Movement inside cycling shoes is the enemy. Hot spots, blisters, all kinds of bad things happen when your foot is moving inside your shoe, on a cycling shoe. To utilize all these variables at the same time, it is a massive investment and requires time and effort to understand. What makes Lake unique is that we are the only brand who has invested into all cyclists to ensure that as much as possible, the rider can be comfortable on the bike. Understanding all the variables, then applying them to the Lake equation makes it clear for which Lake shoe is the right one for you. So here is our equation here. We have 4 things that we take in consideration: emotion, logic, common sense, and uncommon sense. So your average uninformed customer who walks into a bike shop, they go straight for the emotion. Nice design, I love the color and the shape, super slim and looks aerodynamic. Common sense, okay, I need to be comfortable, I want it to be dry, and I want it to last forever. Then, after they see the shoe they want, they work over to logic. Okay, does it fit? What size? Materials? Okay, maybe not the most important thing. But then the uncommon sense. Use. What are you using this shoe for? You know, obviously you're going to ride a bike, but are you a racer? Are you a triathlete? Are you a casual rider? Countermeasures. There's a reason why in most cycling shoes there's toe lift, but you don't talk about that. Toe lift puts the foot in position, so you have more peak power, you have more endurance, you have less energy being spent to stabilize. And the properties. Properties going back to the materials of using materials that manage moisture, because moisture management is key. Does anyone care, you know, what a material that has phase change in it, where your foot has a constant temperature, or something like a new foam that promotes evaporation, so it makes your foot feel cool. So these uncommon sense things are where like a good bike fitter can make a huge difference. So then you have an informed customer who kind of works on the logic side first. A fit is the most important. I need a shoe that fits. That's why they go into a fitter. They want to fit. Get the right size, pick the right materials, and then this is where you do your work. And you focus on the uncommon sense things, the things that most people don't know. And then hopefully by then, they love our ugly shoes. So let's talk about fit. A common question we get is, does Lake fit true to size? True to size is subjective. This is a Brannick device. And the Brannick device is it's a unique thing that doesn't necessarily translate well to all shoes. So true to size is a term associated with the Brannick device and its measuring system, which is based on US sizes, which in turn is based on the imperial system, which is in turn based on barley corn. That's barley corn. So WTF is barley corn. Historically, cobblers used barley corn and poppy seeds to measure customers' foot. I'm sure most of you have heard of the inch. In the US, we still use it, but 3 barley corn is 1 inch. 12 poppy seeds is 1 inch. This is the units of measurements from, you know, back when people were still on horses and carriages. So barley corn as a standardized units of measurement for shoes originates in the UK. Originally, 3 barley corn 1 inch, and for the sake of shoes, 3 barley corns equals 1 size unit. So if you measure someone's foot, it's 27 barley corns, that's a UK size 9. So next time you look at your shoes and you say, you know, they'll usually have US size, EU size, centimeter. If you see with UK size, just divide it by 3, multiply it by 3, and that's how many barley corns it is. However, in practice, we don't have barley corns for making measurements anymore. Still today, the equation goes something like this. 3 barley corns times the inch measurement minus a comfort constant. So the comfort constant. So a UK, that constant is 23 because they start at 0. If you've ever, as an American, you go to UK and you want to go to the elevator, 1 is first floor for us to the ground, but in the UK it's 0. So that's why it's 23. US is 22, US men's 22, US women is 21. And you have the shoe size. So an example is you measure 10.66 inches times 3 equals 32, minus 23 is a UK 9. Same equation, minus 22 is a US 8. Same equation, minus 21 is a US women's 7. Now, let's look at the one other common unit of measurement, originally known as the Paris point, or more commonly known as Euro sizing or EU sizing. One EU size unit is 2/3 a centimeter, or 0.666 centimeters, or 6.66 millimeters. But how does that translate to shoe size? The EU size system uses an equation of 1.5 as a multiplier, plus a constant of 2, 3, 4, 5, depends on the brand, for comfort. So that additional number is what they consider their comfort constant. And to get the shoe size example, you measure 27 centimeters times 1.5 plus 3 is 43.5. That's your EU size. If 3 is your comfort constant. If it's 4, then it's 43.5. So how do EU sizes and US, UK sizes charts relate from brand to brand, true to size? They don't. Because every brand uses a different constant. Every brand uses a proprietary number. The best way to know if a shoe fits is to try it on. Understand the brand you sell and buy. Understand how shoes are made. Understand your foot shape. So we can all measure our feet, and we all know what, especially if the shoe you're selling, which size fits me. So if I measure my foot and I'm 270, I know I'm a 43 and a half in a lake. I have a customer, I measure their foot and it's 265. I have some indication because I have on my body everywhere I go basically a ruler or something that helps us to understand the brand. So we get into materials. So in the past, and maybe it's a little less now, we were most known for making shoes from leather. However, we're not an exclusively leather-only shoemaker. We choose the appropriate material that functions specifically for each intended activity. With that being said, leather does provide unparalleled fit and comfort. Microfiber shoes will fit differently than leather shoes. Notably, the uppers will feel tighter, smaller, and have limits to the amount of stretch and form fitting. So what that means is, when you put a leather shoe on today, it's going to change shape over the lifetime of the shoe, and eventually it will conform to your foot shape. Whereas microfiber, the way it fits today, will probably fit very similar through the entire life cycle of the product. So some of the benefits of leather is, leather has the unique ability to change shape to make a near perfect match to your foot shape while maintaining support, as well as adapting to your foot shape as it changes throughout the ride. This is an important thing. Your foot is full of bones and muscles and tendons, and unfortunately, as you ride, your foot starts to change shape. Sometimes it starts to swell. Sometimes, this can happen from heat or being cold. The nice thing about leather is it won't restrict your foot. Moisture management. Full grain leather offers superior natural breathability as it is very porous. Leather doesn't generate heat. It breathes and only warms up to your body temperature, staying cool when it's hot and warm when it's cold. Keeping your feet dry and comfortable is paramount. And that's something there's a few very technical materials that have similar functionality of phase change, but leather naturally has phase change property to where it maintains almost a constant. So anyone have any questions at this point? While we have a brief break. All right, we're back in business. So just a little explanation about leather. Leather is a durable and flexible material that's created by tanning animal rawhides, primarily cattle, but this is also done with goats, ostriches, kangaroos, crocodiles. And tanning is the process of treating the skin and hide of the animals to produce leather. So a tannery is the place where this is done. So tanning the hide into leather involves a process which permanently alters the protein structure of the skin, making it more durable and less susceptible to decomposition. And also possibly, you can also apply colors to it during the tanning process. So microfiber, this is probably the second, or at the moment, the most popular material of choice for most shoes. So microfiber, some of the main benefits are its appearance. So microfiber has a more consistent appearance finish than natural leather, and mostly have a polyurethane coating. And that surface can be embossed in large areas and have different designs and textures. Strength of microfiber is quite high, so it has higher tensile strength, resistance to elongation, resistance to acid, alkali resistance, discoloration resistance, and it's easier to clean than animal hides. It's lighter weight, so when you compare a 1 millimeter thick microfiber versus a 1 millimeter thick leather, the weight to strength ratio is much better on microfiber. The microfiber will be lighter and it'll be stronger. And it's lower cost. It's easy to cut, high utilization rate, easy to clean than animal hides. The cost efficiency it's higher productivity than natural hides, and there's less waste. So it's certainly, no, I'm not gonna give you any illusions. It's much cheaper than leather. So just a little explanation of microfiber. So microfiber leather, microfiber is trying to emulate leather. And it's created from polyester fibers, polyamide fibers, and polyurethane. Microfiber is a highly technological simulation of natural leather. So non-woven microfiber is engineered what is commonly referred to as island in the sea process, starting with multiple components. Multi-component fibers is the C portion of the multi-component, let's see, yeah. So yeah, you have basically all these fibers that work as the island, and then another polyurethane that's the C. And what that allows is once the C is removed, you have a porous fiber network that's interconnected, and that is similar structure as leather. So simply put, it replaces the natural collagen fiber structure of a leather hide. And that's all they're trying to do, is to eliminate skin structure. So here is one of the final components of fit, and that's the shapes. So just a little shoe fitting tip. From your shoe insole, you can get a rough idea of length, width, and last shape of your shoes. It's a good visual aid to immediately identify if the shoes you want is in the general shape of providing a good fit. So almost all your shoes come with insoles. If you're interested to find out, are the shoes I'm wearing now, the right shape for me, pull your insole out, put your foot down, and see how much overlap there is, or see how much space is around your foot. So measurements from your current shoe insole can also be applied to determine which Lake shoe is the right size by getting the millimeter measurement. If your shoe does have mondo point or centimeter measurements, it's a good starting point, because especially if it's a European brand, the sizing is based on the last length versus, say, a US brand where the sizing is based off a foot length. So a little bit of an anatomy of the foot to understand when we create the last form, what we're measuring, what we're taking into consideration. So we have the toe box, the metatarsal, the arch, the ball, the waist, the instep, the heel, the ankle, and then the height. So when we create our shoe last, we take all these variables into consideration. And the thing about the shoe last is, it's like John explained, there's the middle, but you have to have a base foundation. And where he explained, there's on the extreme of the bell curve, this or that, wide or narrow or long or low volume or high volume, the way we control that is in the upper pattern. So we have this base foundation, but we build in to the upper pattern adjustability. So this form is, all lasts have different shapes, different profiles, different volumes from brand to brand. And even like in the same brand, we have different lasts from model to model so that we can make a shoe that fits many different foot shapes. So here's just a little, let's say the anatomy. You go to the butcher shop and you see the cow. This is kind of how we talk about shoes. There's the top line collar, the quarter, the heel counter, the midsole, which would be either carbon fiber or nylon, the outsole, which in case for mountain bike shoes could be rubber or TPU. Road shoes only usually have a heel and a toe pad, which is considered an outsole. Toe box, the vamp, eye stay, and the tongue. So just having a general understanding of this terminology, it helps you to communicate with your customer of what they're feeling and where they're feeling something, and also helps you to communicate with your brand. If you say, hey, my customer he needs more space in the toe box, or he has a low instep, so the vamp is, which model accommodates a high instep or a low instep. So similar to John's slide of having two people the same height with longer legs and shorter legs, the foot has a similar scenario. We have 3 different foot shapes, but from the length measurement, they're all 270 millimeter. We have a wide foot, 96 millimeter from, let's say from the widest to the fifth, a medium foot shape, and a narrow foot shape. Yeah, so from the first metatarsal to the heel denotes the arch length. So that's, they're all relatively in the same area. So they would all more or less be in, let's say, the same length of shoe. So we look at the guy with the wide foot, in a 96 millimeter wide shoe at a 270 length. Definitely this guy would be in a wide. Put him in 92 millimeter shoe, which we consider as a regular width. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be tight. And then try to get him in like, a famous Italian brand. No way. Not going to happen. Not going to fit. Same goes with medium foot. Yeah, he can fit in a wide shoe, but he's probably going to have some foot movement. So being in a regular width is probably the right fit. Going in something narrow, same problem. It's going to be too tight, going to be uncomfortable. And then our narrow foot rider. A shoe that's too wide, he's going to have a lot of problems, a lot of hot spots, blisters. He's going to have a lot of movement. Medium, maybe he can get by with it if he cranks the shoes down. But going back to this, people will crank the shoes down when in the wrong size, and then when you start getting to really big problems like bones dislodging and bunions starting to form. So a narrow foot rider would need a narrow fitting shoe. So we talk a lot about width, and width is actually volume. It's not just stick width. It's the circumference of the last. So from a wide to a standard width, it's about 15 millimeters of usable space, but it's not 15 millimeters from medial to lateral. It's about 5 millimeters on the lateral side, 5 millimeters on the top, and 5 millimeters on the medial sides. And all that space is usable not only for wide feet, but also for high volume feet, or someone with a high instep, or very thick foot.
Hutch, good question for you. So when a shoe goes from 90 mils of width to 105, that means that I'm getting 5, 5, and 5?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so, you know, we often have a customer who says, I have a regular and I have a wide, and I measured with a caliper, and it's not 15 millimeter difference. It's only 10 or 8 or 9 or something like that. We're like, yeah, but that's not how we build volume. We don't just add 15 millimeters to overhang on the shoe. It's also in the volume on the top.
And that goes with any measurement, like if it's 20, it's 776?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That goes with any measurement, like is divided always by 3, because I wanted to explain this to them in Spanish. It goes to every measurement, like if a shoe goes, if it's narrow, it is 88 mil.
Yes.
And that's the same reference, the same shoe, the 333, it's an example.
Yeah.
The narrow one is 88 mils, which I don't know if it is, I'm just giving an example. 88 mil, and then the wide or extra wide is 20 mils bigger in measurement.
Yep.
It means that those 20 mils are divided by the 3 contact points, which is medial, lateral, and toe volume.
Yeah, essentially. So let me go back to this slide. When what we call going from here to here is grading. And the grading is adding a little just around, complete circumference of more volume being added. Not just starting here and expanding out to here. There's grading that goes up as well. And that this is in effect for different widths, but this also goes in effect for different lengths. So as you go from a 42 to say a 43, there is also grading here and here. And you'll see that in the size chart, like a 42 is narrower than a 43.
Okay, now another question. If you know the answer, because I want to go deeper into this, it's part of what I like about the shoes, which I obviously use them, but if you know the answer. So when other brands said wide and large, what I have noticed is that they don't really widen the bottom part of the shoe. What they do is they just put a little bit of extra leather or whatever the material is to make that volume
Yes.
bigger, assuming that the material is going to expand with the size of the wide feet, right? And that's how they do it. They just put a little bit more material.
They increase the upper volume.
Exactly. Ok, voy a traducir esto porque esta es la clave y yo he hecho videos al respecto a esto, ¿no? Las marcas tradicionales de zapatos, muchas de ellas tienen la opción wide and large, que traduce amplio y largo, ¿cierto? O ancho y largo, ¿vale? Y yo al principio caí en la trampa. Entonces cuando venía alguien con un pie ancho o de volumen, yo les decía, no, compre el wide. ¿Sí? Yo creo que todos hemos caído en esa trampa, ¿vale? Pero lo que noté era que en muchos casos no solucionaba el problema. Pues primero que todo porque cuando dice wide, ¿cuánto mide un zapato wide? Alguien que me diga, levante la mano rápido. No sabemos. No sabemos cuánto mide el zapato wide. No sabemos. No, por eso. Colócate una marca ahí, la que sea. y dime cuánto mide el zapato que tú quieras wide. Por favor, hazlo. El que tú quieras. Shimano es Fire Wide, Specialized Wide, CD Wide, DMT Wide, el que sean, por favor, díganme la medida. No la listan. No tienen una medida de wide. Este zapato sí la lista. Este zapato te dice 10 centímetros, 10.5, 11 centímetros. Es una medida. Yo compro los zapatos por medida, no por talla. Vuelvo al ejemplo. Por favor, dígame cuánto mide un wide. Nadie sabe cuánto mide un wide. Y la pregunta que yo le hice a él, y me pareció, porque yo no sabía la respuesta, era que cuando ellos pasan de un estándar a un wide, esa cantidad de milímetros o de medida que aumenta proporcionalmente en las tres áreas, medial, lateral y de volumen. Y la respuesta era sí, que yo no sabía esa respuesta. Yo pensé que cuando iban de 80 a 100 eran esos 2 centímetros más de suela, ahí yo fue que empecé a darme cuenta de que las otras marcas me engañaban. Bueno, en realidad no me engañaban, hacían una buena combinación de palabras, ¿no? Que el engañado, el bobo era yo, de no cuestionarlo. Pero si ustedes cogen un zapato regular de todas las marcas que acabé de mencionar y miden la suela, el ancho de la suela, en el regular versus el wide large, mide exactamente lo mismo. Lo único que hace es que le colocan un poquito más de material, aumentando entonces, lo que tiene que hacer el pie es meterse y él mismo aumentar esa superficie. Ellos lo que hacen es lo aumentan en todo lado, en la superficie. Entonces, si mide 15 milímetros más de ancho, entonces tiene 5 más en cada lado. O sea, regularmente va a ser 1 centímetro más de ancho y los otros 5 milímetros se lo dan más de volumen. Claro, ahí tienen zapatos. Vos puedes medir los zapatos wide de ellos y hay suelas de más de 10 centímetros de ancho en la parte frontal. Los que yo tengo, los 333, que son los más anchos de la referencia, miden más de 10 centímetros en la suela. De 10 centímetros. El zapato convencional en la talla mía de zapato, que es entre 43 y 44, dependiendo del zapato, ninguno en la industria tiene una suela mayor a 9 centímetros de ancho. Ninguno, no existe. En wide, en large, tampoco. Para que lo tengan en cuenta. Oh, you're no use.
Thank you, Renee. So we come to instep. This is also an important aspect to understand is high instep, low instep, standard instep, and this is also equates with arch. So different instep heights can affect the volume and the fit of the shoe. Various instep heights can also have different widths. It's not exclusive that low insteps are wide feet or high insteps are narrow feet. It's very much a mixed combination. Gracias. Thank you. So if anything else you want clarified or any other questions about fitting or manufacturing or why things are done a certain way, I can answer as best as I.
Sorry, could you help us with any suggestion about you take into account the drop from the shoe, drop from the heel to the front of the shoe, like the drop?
Yes. So we call that the toe spring, the heel to toe drop. And
He hecho la pregunta de si tienen en cuenta la caída que hay del talón al antepié, porque hay zapatos que son más planos, hay zapatos que tienen más caída, hay zapatos que tienen más caída y más curva, ¿verdad? Adelante. And how do you match this with the shape of the foot and the riding style
Yes.
with the ankle height?
so riding style, riding style, the length, this is all takes into consideration for what we call the toe spring. And the whole point of toe spring is to help, one, put the foot in the position that optimizes the muscle, let's say endurance, minimize foot movement, and basically to help with the overall ability for the foot to splay. When, how your foot interacts with the ground is totally different than how your foot interacts on the pedal. How you want to propel yourself, your foot shape is totally different than, you try to jump completely flat-footed to put power, it's very difficult. But if you, like any sprinter, any runner, any time where you're trying to get bursts of energy, you load yourself, you put a little spring in your toes, which on the ground, it's heel lift. On the bike, it's toe lift. And that's why, depending on also the rider level, like more pro level models have a little more toe pitch. More casual riders, it's a little less, and there's still toe lift there, but it's a little less based on most average people don't have that muscle structure in their feet anymore because we've lived in shoes our entire life. You go to places where people still wear flip-flops every day, they can crack a coconut open because their feet are so strong. But the average rider doesn't have that strength and it's a bit uncomfortable. But it takes time. And what we find is, as riders who start, they work out with less toe lift. When they move on to a shoe with with more toe lift, they start to realize the benefit and they're comfortable with it. So if someone who's never ridden before, very casually, and you put them in the top race level shoe, that toe lift is very noticeable. It's very uncomfortable because their body's not used to it. They don't have the muscle structure yet for it or the flexibility for it. But as they ride and work their way, they progress, they slowly, your foot naturally wants to go in that shape as you start to put more power into the pedal.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So he's telling us that Lake shoes has more drop.
It depends on the line of the shoe. Lo que estaba diciendo él era que la pregunta era si el zapato tenía caída, ¿no? Talón dedos, drop, ¿cierto? La posición. La explicación de Hutch era que el cuerpo naturalmente funciona mejor en todas las actividades que hacemos por fuera de la bicicleta, funciona mejor si estoy parado ligeramente en la punta de los pies. Desde aquí yo puedo hacer más fuerza, pero en la bicicleta es diferente porque lógicamente no tiene contacto con todo el pie. Pues en la bicicleta la biomecánica más fácil, y yo quiero aclarar eso, más fácil, porque yo hablo de esto todo el tiempo, la biomecánica más fácil es bajar el talón. Es lo más fácil, es lo más fácil para el cuerpo en movimiento. Entonces, a medida de que el zapato que ellos crean es más de nivel, ¿sí? Lo que hacen es tratar de seguir esa biomecánica natural o fácil de pedaleo, que es bajar un poco más o llevar los dedos al revés del sprint o de la propulsión, que es esta, y es esto. Entonces, también explicaba de que para una persona que nunca ha pedaleado, puede llegar a ser incómodo tener el pie forzadamente en esa posición en el pedaleo, pero que a medida en que va pedaleando es un tema de adaptación y costumbre que después va a llegar a tener beneficios. ¿Sí? ¿Sí me entendieron la explicación? Bueno, vamos a dar... Dale.
Since the shoe is wide, is any problems with the space between the crank and the shoe, or the cleat has a little bit extra movement?
It does.
Outside.
It does.
Yeah, so we take in account the Q factor because the standard is about like 54 millimeters from center to crank arm, and the cleat location never goes beyond 47 millimeters. But and most pedals have, enough space to where you can accommodate so you don't have crank rub. But this is also another subject about Q factor, and it's a very individual thing. There is not like, there's this misconception that you got to get your feet as close together. That's nonsense. You need to get your feet in line with your hips. Everyone's hips are different. So you may need, to come in a little bit, or you may need to go out. You may need longer spindles or shorter ones. It's really depends on you. But the shoes are designed to work correctly with the 54 millimeter standard.
¿Entendieron toda la pregunta y la respuesta? ¿Sí? ¿Sí? Listo, perfecto. Bueno, entonces, yo les voy a invitar a que le den un aplauso a Hutch. Si quieres, te la respondo después para irnos a las Ya saben todos los que tenemos credencial, vamos a ir al almuerzo, por favor. Y vamos a estar aquí a las 2 en punto.